Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us so early during the reInvent 2018. I know it's a Monday. Some of you may have traveled a long distance right after Thanksgiving, so I highly appreciate you spending your time with us for the next hour or so. My name is Jia Wei. I'm the Global Account Manager I'm the General Manager for Global Accounts for AWS China team. And today, alongside with my colleague Dai Wen, we'll share with you what we are up to in the China regions. So before we get started, let me make sure this clicker is working. All right. Okay, as we are resolving the screen display situations, can I get a show of hands? How many of you in the audience today already have an AWS China account? Okay, that's about 20% of you. Thank you very much. Now, how many of you in the audience today don't have an AWS China account but are thinking of getting one? Now, for the rest of you that did not put up your hand, are you sure you are in the right sessions? All right. Regardless, I hope you'll find the session today to be really helpful. So even if you're not considering China regions today, I hope by the end of the sessions, you'll find the session to be helpful enough that you may want to think about using China to serve your users in that region. Okay, so you would have seen the agenda if the slides is displaying. So we have a couple of things lining up for you today. I give you a context of what we are up to in China thus far, the region, the services that we have. I give you context about some of the new programs that we are launching or we have already launched within China. Show you some examples of the customers that are already using us inside China and from the China regions. And my colleague Dai Wen would share with you some of the best practice that we regularly get asked around how do you run an applications within China or migrate applications that you have done internationally into China. Okay. So, as a quick show of hand, quiz. How many regions do you know we have currently inside China? Sounds good. You guys already got the first part right. Okay. Sorry about this. The good news is running in China regions will be a lot simpler than setting up the presentations. All right, here we go. Thank you. So things always works at the end. All right, so this is an eye chart, right? You will basically see that we have actually launched two regions within China. For those of you that have attended earlier sessions during reInvent where we talk about China regions, you'll realize that we have launched the first region in China back in 2014. That was more than 4 years ago. And I'm very pleased to announce that we have also launched our second region within China in the central part of China called Ningxia. And that makes China the first country outside of the United States to have more than one region with multiple availability zones. Let's just give you a context of how important we think of China is to our business. And right now in China, we have two regions. In Beijing, we have two availability zones. And in Ningxia, we have three. So that makes China to have two regions and 5 availability zones within the country. That gives you the ability to set up cross-zones replications, to set up cross-regions failover if you would like to, and make your applications a lot more redundant and available. Right? And of course, the infrastructures within China are designed to the same specifications and high availability that you expected out of AWS. Now, you may know that in China, there's a different regulatory frameworks relating operating a cloud environment. And they have a different tax and accounting regime as well. So we have selected two partners to help us deliver the service within China. They are namely Signet and NWCD. They are operating Beijing regions and Ningxia region respectively. Right? So you find that while they are operating infrastructure for us, you are using the same and familiar and technologies provided by AWS. We are the technology providers whereby they're providing the local tax invoicing infrastructure support inside the country. When you take a look at the console, you'll find that you get a very familiar user interface that you have come to know us for, right? This is the screenshot out of the AWS China console. Within the AWS China console, you have the ability to control both regions right within the same console. All of the core services has already launched inside China, and you can operate it using the same user interface, a very consistent set of API codes. We want to highlight that really helps you in ensuring that as you are planning your applications, both for international markets as well as for within China, you have a very set of codes that you can work with, and that really expedite your launch within both markets. We have also been innovating at a pretty rapid clip in 2018, in the last 12 months. We have launched many services inside China. If you take a look at migration kind of services, we now have Snowball. We have server migration services, database migration services that help our customers move terabytes of data from their on-premise data centers to AWS. We have also launched Amazon Aurora since we launched the third AZs within our Ningxia region. You may know Aurora is one of our fastest growing services and really give customers that requires additional performance from their SQL database a great alternative from the commercial ones. We also have launched many AI-related services within China. Right? You can use the deep learning AMI. You can use our P3 instances. We have also launched Amazon Poly that speak in Chinese languages so that our customers can build applications targeted at China users. So the list goes on. So you have CI/CD sort of services, you have container-based services, etc. And we expect the pace of innovation to continue to even step up in the next few months as we further expand our offering within China regions. Now, as we talk about China regions, many of our customers have told us in the past, it is not always easy to find information relating to China. Right? We do have a China websites in the past with some context information that customers can find, but it's not that easy. We have heard your feedback. Now, effective today, you could actually access the URL at the bottom of this page to have a one-stop page whereby you can find all the information relating to questions you may have on China regions. How do you request for an account? What sort of services are available? What are the frequently asked questions that you have on China? Now, today, the service, we have launched the ability for you to request for account right from this page. Come early December, we'll be added a bunch of new pages to answer the rest of the questions that you constantly ask us about relating to China. You can even drop us a note and ask us the questions, whereby we'll have a team responding back to you in email based on the question that you ask us. Okay? So that's Amazon Gateway to China, a new portal that we have launched in order to support our international customers that want to know more about China. Now, as we talk about AWS China account registrations, I thought it may be helpful to highlight that AWS China stack are kept separated from your AWS global account stacks. So you will not see it within your global console today. It is done for specific reasons. It's done to help us maintain and meet the regulatory requirements inside China. Having said that, like I mentioned earlier, once you get access to the China console, you will see both regions within China. Now, in order for us to provision an account for you within China, you do have to show it to us that you have a business entity within China. That's a regulatory requirement. Now, to help us get the proof of your legal entity, all that you need to do is to show us usually a scanned copy of your business license, give us the email address that you would like to use to open an account, as well as providing a local contact person for us. This is actually quite important information because in case of any requirements, it really facilitates us contacting your local team to provide a quicker support and response time. Right? So with that, an account can be provisioned to you. You can start using the service within China. The other question I tend to get a lot out of China is relating this process called ICP filing. If you have never done hosting within China before, you may not be familiar with this term. ICP stands for Internet Content Provider. As simple as providing a public-facing website in China, you actually have to go through a process called ICP filing. And that has to happen regardless of which infrastructure providers you are choosing within China. It sounds daunting initially, but the good news is our partners are there to help. We have partners such as NWCD as well as Signet that provide service free of charge while they help our customers apply the ICP filing on your behalf through the Ministry of MMIT over there. The typical time frame is 20 days. That is very consistent to the committed time frame that MIT has committed to all the vendors. Now, if you are a startup, you may already be familiar with the Activate program that we have, right? So Activate program is a program that we provide targeted at startups that give you credit support regardless whether you're using China regions or using international regions. So one of the programs related to Activate that is gaining popularity is it's called AdStart. AdStart is a popular program within the States targeted at startups focusing on educational technology for education sectors, if you will. So if you are edutech startup and want to gain access to China, we want to hear from you. We have a series of programs and helps and seminars in place to help guide you along in targeting the pretty sizable education market and growing market within China. Of course, it comes with credit support. It also comes along with many of the technical assistance connecting with our education customers and etc. that we could offer you as you expand your service offerings, as you expand your business within China. But what if you are a startup, but you don't really have a lot of ideas how to really get into the country, or you may not even have a business entity? This is where our Joint Innovation Center come in handy. AWS Joint Innovation Center, which we call in JIC, are collaborations that we have done with many local city governments in opening up incubation centers to help our startups. We have worked with Shanghai government, Qingdao, Xi'an, Nanjing, to create a space for our customers whereby they can set up the team, they can set up their office. We provide financial assistance, we provide tech consultancy, we provide a central place whereby our customers can seek for government resources and help, all from one same locations. Right, so if you are interested in knowing more about these AWS JIC programs, please feel free to drop by our China booth at AWS Village, where we have a team over there that could explain, if you're interested in this program, how do you get started? So this is a very innovative engagement that we have collaborating with local governments, which also like to encourage innovations. Now, we talk a lot about the services that we have already added, as well as the programs that we have launched this year. So who are some of the customers running on AWS China today? You'll find that we are serving heaps of customers from small scale, from startups to enterprises. You see the list is an eye chart over here, but it comes with many reputable startups such as Musical.ly, such as Alan Networks, such as VIP Kids, which is a unicorn within China. Alan Networks is an IoT provider that operates both inside international market as well as within China, and they run their entire stacks on AWS regions, both internationally as well as in China too. We also serve many traditional enterprises. You see from this list, you have customers ranging from TCL, Hisense, to Philips, Thermo Fisher, right? Serving healthcare markets. And many of them are international customers like yourself too, whereby they have applications they really want to migrate into China to serve the local users better, both in terms of performance considerations or data residency considerations. And AWS platform within China, they operate in a very consistent manner, offers them a great choice when they come into China. Out of that, traditional enterprise too, you find that we have many of those state-owned enterprises using us today as well, including organizations such as Oriental Po, which is TV stations out of Shanghai regions, as well as Hainan Airlines, which is a state-owned enterprise. We also have universities or hospitals such as Huashan Hospital that runs some workloads on AWS regions. So with so many customers ranging for startup and enterprises, do we have a sufficient ecosystem in place to support their usage? We have paid a lot of attention in the last couple of years to beef up our local ecosystem, both from the consulting partners perspective as well as technology partners perspective. We know that our customers, as they use our services in China, they may want to use many of their familiar tools that they are using internationally. And we have spent a lot of efforts bringing on board local and foreign customers to help them land their service within China too. And we have also worked with many of the local providers. They may have unique offerings in the China market, so that our customers have choice in abundance. You have the ability to choose the technology partners or consulting partners you would like to use within China. All right, with that, I would like to hand over the presentation to a colleague of mine, Daiwen, who will walk you through some of the technical best practice in launching your application within China. Thank you, Daiwen.
Thank you, Jiawei, for the detailed and clear introduction to the business part of China region. And my name is Daiwen, and I'm the Solutions Architect Manager in China, helping the global customer expand the workload and platform into China. So today I will just show some brief steps for you to demo the quickest way to enter the China regions. And first of all, when we get started to use a region, we will talk about the IAM user and policies. And in this part, we should be aware that in China regions, there's no root account or root user, which exists in the global regions commonly. In Ningxia or Beijing region, there is no concept of root or account user or credentials. All users are IAM users, including the users who create your account. And this is designed by default. And secondly, the ARN, the Amazon resource name, is different. The syntax is different in the second partition. And you can see the example here. And in the green and the red line in the bottom of the slide, you will see that there's a AWS-CN marked in red, which is different from the global regions. In global region, the partition is AWS, but in China regions, the syntax is AWS-CN. And these two parts are the most common mistakes that our users in China regions will make when they migrate their tools into China regions. Because if you do not change the account or do not change your coding or configurations correctly, you will see that there are some errors in your automated tools. And secondly, after we set up the account and after we notice that there's some policies in need of the particular designed syntax in the ARN, let's get started to prepare some building blocks. First of all, let's talk about the AMI preparation. Because, as Jiawei mentioned, the China region account stack is totally separated from the global regions. So there's the features like AMI cross-region copy or snapshot cross-region copy across the global regions and China regions. So if we would like to prepare an AMI, there are typically two ways in here. First of all, you can still import the VM as an image using a VM import, which is the same way as what you can do in the global regions, because there's the method provided in the system, in the migration services, as well as the VM import tools. You can import the VM as an image using these tools. And secondly, if you do have some AMI that is in need of the migration from the global regions, if the AMI or the operating system is a non-commercial one, for example, this is an operating system like CentOS, you can still migrate the AMI with a hacking way, with the Linux to DD, which will just convert the volume, the root volume, into a big file. And then you can transfer the big file from global region to China region, Beijing or Ningxia region. And then you can convert the file back to a volume and just add the volume back to the virtual machine or the EC2 instances. And that's the part about the AMI preparation. And after we get your AMI ready and we run up the EC2 instances, we will consider about the ways of easy management. So how to manage the EC2 instances or your account stack in a stable way. There are two instructions here. First, you can set up SSH or RDP workstation for server management. And this server or this workstation should be placed in a near region that is in a region that is near to China regions, or you can just set up the workstation in the United States regions or the APAC regions, because now we have the optimized internet routes from China regions to the APAC regions and the United States regions. I will cover this part in the network in the section talking about network. And just as I mentioned, you may have to set up a proxy with stable or optimized internet for console access, which is also leveraging the optimized internet routes from China regions to the global regions. And thirdly, after we get the AMI prepared and the workstation ready for the daily management or operation, we should consider about the ways to make the developer resources easy to access. And for example, there are some global resources like the GitHub and the Docker Hub that is in need of access from your environment in China. And as I mentioned, there's the internet optimized routes from China region to the global regions. And there's also some third-party services that can provide optimized network access, which can be used in the access here. And as a local alternative, you can also leverage some local local vendor resources or services, such as the Dow Cloud, which is a startup providing the Docker Hub-like services in China. And then you needn't access the resources outside of China mainland. You can just access the resources in mainland China with least latency. And that's the whole building blocks that is mentioned again and again when the user gets getting started to use the China regions. And another part about technical practice is the automation. We need to automate the deployment and automate the configuration with the command line and the SDK. And it is a good news that the China region supports exactly the same SDK and command line as you are using in the global regions. For example, in the first item, I just give the example of the URLs that you can see. It is exactly the same as the global regions. But if you are using or setting up these tools, you should be aware that the Beijing region and Ningxia region are using different alias for the region name. And we should make it correct in the configuration of these tools and your SDK so that it can work normally. And specifically, when you just examine the configuration in details, you will find that the endpoint is different in China regions from the global regions because there's .cn suffix appended to the domain name. So you can see that taking the Beijing region, for example, you are accessing a service called XYZ, and then the endpoint will become the xyz.cn-north-1, which is the alias of Beijing region, and then .amazonaws.com, and then appended by the .cn. That is the whole endpoint that is available in China for the service access. And please be aware that for the new regions, including the China regions, Signature v4 is the only signature version that is supported, which means if you have any open source tools or self-made tools that is still using Signature v2, please replace the Signature v2 with Signature v4 to access the China regions smoothly. And by the way, in the global regions, there is also a public roadmap in the field that all the signature for the all the signature algorithm for the endpoints access will be upgraded to Signature v4. So please upgrade the Signature version as soon as possible. And in addition to the self-made tools and automation platforms, you can also leverage some global partners that is mentioned by Jiawei to get your account set up smoothly. For example, we have the partners solutions from Tableau for the big data services or platform build. We have Palo Alto for the next generation firewall. We also have the Fortinet for the IPS and the firewall offerings. And we also have the Barracuda for the WAF. And all the solutions from the listed global partners are available in China, and you can just contact your account manager or just send a mail to the contacts that we mentioned to set up, to require the global partners services in China. Okay, I go through several points about the basic services and the partner solutions. And finally, I think many of you may be interested about the network, because this is the most interesting part when we talk about the connection between the China regions and global regions. And I will go through this part in details for you to cover the various scenarios. First of all, let's have a review about the scenarios we may get or we may access in the daily work. In the first column, I just give a list of the typical scenarios, and I also list two typical solutions, including the internet connection and the private connection, which will be accomplished by the Direct Connect services. And first, about the management. Just as I mentioned, if you are setting up a workstation or setting up a proxy to access the EC2 instances in China regions or the console in China regions, you can use the internet connection. This internet connection can be provided by the optimized internet routes, which is done by AWS Infrastructure Network team. And it is also can be done by the third-party vendors, and I will cover this part later. And the bulk data migration, for example, in the initial setup for China region, you may have a PB level or TB level data to migrate from or to replicate from your region in the United States or Europe or APAC to China. So the internet connection is still a very good option, because after this initial migration, you do not need a connection anymore, and you just need a small bandwidth or a stable and small bandwidth. About the developer resources, as I mentioned, you can still use the internet connection, which is optimized or accelerated to access the resources in the global regions or in the global sites. But in terms of the critical production, for example, the database replication, or some very critical workload interaction between the China regions and global regions, it is necessary to build up a private connection with Direct Connect with this line. I will cover this part later. And the database replication is also a part of the critical production, and I just listed separately here to emphasize it. And finally, about the cross-region application. If it is HTTPS-based interaction, the internet connection is okay to go. But if your application do not have any retry or fault-tolerant mechanism, it is necessary to build up a private connection with Direct Connect. So, as I mentioned several times just now, there's optimize the internet routes between the China region and the global regions. So let's go through this in details. In the left-hand side of this slide, you can see that there's the Ningxia and Beijing region. These are China regions. And in the right hand, you can see that there's a regions in the United States or Singapore or Tokyo. And there's some white ISP network and white lines in the middle, which refers to the internet routes provided by the internet service providers. So before we did the optimization, you can see that if you send a packet from EC2 in China region, for example, in Beijing region, to the EC2 in the United States regions, for example, in Oregon, the packets will just flow through the China ISP network for internet, and then it will be handed over to another ISP, and maybe it will be handed over to the third ISP, and then finally to the Amazon network in United States, and then packets just flow through to the EC2 of Oregon. However, this is not optimized, right? So there will be some latency, variable latency, and there will be packet loss. So to mitigate this issue, there's a very good work that is done by AWS infrastructure team. We just made a direct peering in internet with the China ISP. Currently, it is the China Telecom. You can see that if we send a packet now from the Beijing region to the EC2 instances in United States regions or Singapore or Tokyo, you can see that the packets will flow out of Beijing region and then into the backbone of the China Telecom ISP network. It's the internet, please be aware of this. And then it will be directly flow into the Amazon network. So in China, we pair with the China Telecom internet networks, and in the global regions, we also did the pairing. So if we send packets from China region to the global regions, you can see that the packets will just flow through the China Telecom internet backbone and then to the other side. So the latency will be the latency will be guaranteed. The latency is optimized, and it is still the internet. So the latency is not guaranteed, but the latency is already optimized a lot. And so does the packet loss. And this is our great work that is done by the AWS direct pairing with the China ISPs. And we are still developing this network further. So in terms of the critical workload or the database replication, as I mentioned, then it needs the private connection, and I will cover the private connection in the following slides. About this slide is still about the optimized internet. So what's the difference between this optimized internet and the previous slides? The previous slides is showing the optimized routes that is done by AWS and the China ISP. But however, there are some still requirements about some guarantee about the internet routes or internet packet loss, and there are still some regions that is not covered by the optimization in the previous slides. So to help the customers that is using the regions that are not covered, or help the customer that is requiring guaranteed services, so we just introduced a value-added service that is provided by China Telecom. In this diagram showing the China Telecom service that is providing the value-added optimization to the internet. In the left hand, you can see that there's the China users. It's not a region, right? These are end users. So in the right hand, that is the AWS region. For example, taking the AWS Tokyo region, for example. The China Telecom data center is standing in the middle. And the China Telecom data center is connecting to your VPC via a VPN or private connection. And then it will convert your private IP to a public IP that is owned by China Telecom. Please be aware that this public IP is announced into the China internet with very fast routes. which is done by China Telecom, so that this public IP can be accessed by all the China end users smoothly with low latency and low packet loss. And this solution is adopted by the blockchain customers a lot in 2018, and so does the customers having the requirements to providing the China user a fast access to the global regions. But the difference is that in the previous slides, with AWS have the optimization done in the underlying network, the charging model is still based on the common charging model. For example, it is transparent to the end users. But in this slides, the customer have to do a separate contract with China Telecom for the value-added services. So these two parts are the China internet optimization for the region-to-region and end-user-to-region scenarios. So in terms of the critical workload and the database replication, we need the private connection with low latency, with guaranteed SLA, with guaranteed packet loss, and here is the solution. This solution is set up based on the Direct Connect services. So in the left hand, you can see that there's a VPC in Ningxia or Beijing region. It's in the China region. And in the right hand, you can see there's the VPC in Tokyo region, in Oregon region, and in Singapore region. I take these three regions for three different scenarios. And in the middle, you can see a white cloud, that is the MPLS or SD-WAN provided by the service providers. And typically, this is the Direct Connect partner of AWS. And these slides, I just take the China Mobile International, for example, in this case, because we have already set up a very good relationship and very good facilities with China Mobile, and it can provide you the private connections in less than 1 week. Here you can see also another icon that is in a dashed line of a circle. That is the Direct Connect location in Hong Kong. And this Direct Connect location is very critical for you to connect the China regions to the global regions, because the China Mobile International has already set up the facilities in the Beijing regions, India regions, and the Hong Kong Direct Connect location. So, when you connect the China region to the global regions, for example, if you would like to connect to all the global regions, we can leverage the newly launched service called Direct Connect Gateway. So, which means as long as you connect the Beijing region via the Beijing Direct Connect location to the Hong Kong Direct location via the China Mobile private line, you can get a VPC in Beijing region connected to any other VPCs in the global regions. Because when you're getting connected to the Hong Kong direct location with the Direct Connect Gateway service, you can connect to any other VPCs in the global regions. However, sometimes you can see that the routes in the global backbone of AWS is controlled by AWS. And sometimes if you would like to choose another route, maybe that is dependent on the AWS. So in that scenario, if you would like to control your routes, for example, if you would like to connect the VPC in Beijing to a VPC in Tokyo region with your own chosen routes, you may still leverage the existing routes or existing links that is provided by the service provider. For example, you can still connect the Beijing VPC with the China Mobile private line all the way along to the Tokyo region direct locations to get the VPC in Beijing region connected up with the VPC in Tokyo region. And this is the two scenarios. And about you can see that there's still a line connecting the Hong Kong direct connect location to the VPCs in Singapore region. That is a hint telling everybody that originally the direct location in Hong Kong was attached to the Singapore region. But now with AWS Direct Connect Gateway launched, Hong Kong direct location can be connected to anywhere, can be connected to any location in the AWS backbone to any regions. And that's all for the scenarios that can be done by the AWS Direct Connect along with China Mobile Internet international backbone and private line networks. So you can, I can pause here and you can see that we are cooperating with the top service providers, China Telecom and China Unicom and China Mobile in all the network parts to guarantee that the solution is fully compliant to the regulatories and it's fully guaranteed in terms of the packet loss and latency. So finally, if you still have any questions about the China regions, there are FAQ and some comparison and the region service tables in the first 3 links. And if you would like to set up an account, and you can check the 4th link, and just like the global regions, after you getting China region account and get your workload running in a region, if you would like to check the health dashboard, there's still China region health dashboard for the service health. And that's all from the technical practice sharing. And at the end, I would like to hand it back to Jiawei for the summary and the closing. Thank you.
Thanks, Daiwen. Thanks for providing a very detailed explanations about the best practice of landing inside China. If you have done any infrastructure work or landing any solution application inside China before, you realize that networking is indeed one of the hardest part. The good news is we have resolved many of those connectivity challenges for our customers. So be it whether you want to run an application within China, or you may still want to run an application from outside of China, but want to improve the performance for your users inside, or you want to have a much better QoS-controlled connectivity environment, similar to a third example that Daiwen has sharing, you find that you have the ability to do it all from the application you run within the China region. So with that, we have concluded our presentation today. I hope you find it to be helpful. And if you have further questions, Daiwen and I will stay around in the front stage today to answer questions on a one-on-one basis. At the same time, please remember to visit us at the China booth at AWS Village. We will have colleagues available all day taking schedules to answer your further questions if you have any. Do give us a feedback from the apps, and I hope you found the session to be helpful, and enjoy the rest of the re:Invent. Thank you.